I happen to be in Eilat, which is the southernmost city in Israel, right on the Red Sea. I wish you could see it, but from here you're only going to see a palm tree, a withered palm tree, and a gas station. But Eilat is the Red Sea is right there, and the mountains, which you could see if I had a better view, that's Jordan. We're looking at the country of Jordan. And then right to the south, that way would be Egypt. And we're sitting on this very strategic border. Yet this is like this resort town where people come for vacation. And we are actually, I'm here for a dance competition for my daughter. So I knew this months ago when I agreed to this date, and yet they changed the dance schedule to like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So anyway, I won't make it. So I'm recording this because there is actually, anyway, there's so much news this week, and I really feel like we are at a pivotal moment here in the region, in this entire region. And there's just been a crisscross of events this week that have been really, really crucial. Starting, I mean, I don't even know where to start with the several ballistic missiles that are still being launched by the Houthis at Israel. You probably know, like, that 2 weeks ago, one actually landed at the airport. And we have been sent back to the Stone Ages in terms of trying to get flights in and out of the country and having tourists come and trips canceled. And then also, us trying to get out on a normal flight. So that's been utterly changed. Also, a lot of sirens lately in Jerusalem, which is extremely rare, but it happened. I think it's, if I can do the math quickly, at least 3 in 72 hours, 2 within about less than 24 hours of each other, and then another one just yesterday. But Eilat is the closest to Yemen, and that's where the Houthis are based. And that's where the rockets are being launched, or these missiles are being launched from, at a distance of 1,500 to 2,000 miles. And they are usually being intercepted, except for the one that landed at the airport. And that was a bit of, caused a lot of chaos here, which has long-reaching implications that will go on for a while. So, but another huge factor this week is the fact that US President Donald Trump is visiting the region. And his trip it just comes at such a critical time, because you still have now 58 hostages. I'll get to that in a second. You've got 58 hostages in Gaza. And you have now Israel having full out renewed fighting there, and calling up tens of thousands of reservists to go into Gaza. And the bombing there is really shaking the ground, the very ground there. We also had a terror attack this week in the northern Western Bank in Samaria. A woman who was on her way to the hospital to give birth to her 4th child was killed. Terrorists shot at the car, and she was killed, and her husband was injured. The baby is in critical care, but is hanging on so far. But they just buried this woman yesterday. So all of this is happening now. Just in Gaza, just overnight, the Palestinians are reporting that 100 people have been killed. And I haven't been able to literally sit down and add up the numbers from this week alone, but it's probably in the hundreds that have been killed in the renewed fighting. The military operation there is now like this maximum pressure campaign, and it really kicked off overnight between Thursday and Friday, because Trump's visit to the region is coming to an end. And also, it was a little bit on hold this week because of this hostage release. So the hostage that was released is an American Israeli. He grew up in New Jersey with his family, but when he turned 18, he said, I'm going to go fight for Israel. His parents are from Israel, but it was born and raised in Jersey. And he said, I'm going to go fight in the army. So on October 7th, he was kidnapped. And now he is the last remaining living hostage that has American citizenship. So it was completely the effort of the Americans, the American administration, Steve Witkoff, the envoy, that negotiated for his release. They negotiated, I would say directly with Hamas, but there may have been an intermediary. But in any case, without Israel, they just went straight to the source and conducted the negotiations. So that was extremely interesting. And while every hostage release is welcomed by Israelis, this one sent a message that for the takeaway by Israelis wasn't so much that that it's not fair that the Americans get out. It was, wow, the American government did everything it could to get their citizen out. What about our country? So that left a lot of Israelis feeling like, wow, where's my government? Will they not save me? And this is one of the reasons why we've come to this really, this pivotal point and this crossroads, is that Israelis are a little bit shaken by the fact that it took another government and a separate negotiation to get their people out, to get this one soldier out. So that's what's happening with that. Now, then Trump is here in the region. Of course, this just preceded his trip. And this Idan Alexander is the hostage's name. He was a soldier. So soldiers are treated differently in captivity. He said that he was held in a cage at some point, and with his arms and his wrists bound for a while. But after he got back a couple of days ago, he's already out of the hospital, so he will be okay. But Idan Alexander was released just on the eve of Trump's visit here. Then Trump, when I say here, I mean the wider region. So his first trip was to Saudi Arabia, that way, actually, right behind me, really close to here, actually, the border with Saudi Arabia. So his first visit was to Saudi Arabia. His second stop is Qatar. And then his third stop was the United Arab Emirates. Now, a lot of deals were being made, a lot of economic deals, a lot of course, like a lot of behind the scene negotiations. I really don't think we're going to know everything we need to know about this until, when it comes out, probably later. But there was a lot the most interesting thing for me was that he met with the new leader of Syria. And this is somebody that we have been talking about. We've been talking about here for months, since November, because when the rebels just came in and overthrew the Bashar al-Assad regime there in Syria, there were a lot of questions like, what kind of approach are they going to take? And the one who's the leader now of Syria, Abu Muhammad al-Julani. He's from this Al-Qaeda breakaway group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS, we've been calling it. And he had a $10 million bounty on his head from the US government. And Syria was, of course, under sanctions. This guy was wanted for war crimes. And then in the last couple of months, we're talking about, not just me, but many others raising the alarm about how the Alawite people in Syria, they're connected to the Assad, they're of the same group of Assad. The Alawites just being slaughtered over there. And then lately, just within the last couple, 2 weeks, we're talking about the Druze that are in Syria, totally under threat by this group. Like there was actually like the Israeli army was actually involved in like a couple warning strikes to back off the rebel forces or the new government forces that were planning to invade the Druze villages. So I mean, that's unbelievable. So this is all happening. And now deal with Trump. He invites him to join the Abraham Accords, invites him to make peace with Israel and join the Abraham Accords, which already you've got the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan, a little iffy on that one. And of course, everybody is like waiting for Saudi Arabia. None of these announcements came out. I'm sure he asked Qatar as well. So here we are dealing with things like, is Qatar harboring terrorists? Is it a terror supporting regime? They have their home base for the Hamas exiles, and it's the home of Al Jazeera. It's based in Doha, and many countries are against Al Jazeera. I mean, Israel banned Al Jazeera, but not as shocking maybe as the fact that there's other Arab countries, Muslim countries that have banned Al Jazeera. So that, it's just unbelievable connections there. But he invited Giuliani, he lifted the sanctions on Syria and invited Giuliani to join the government. Now, by the way, Giuliani now goes by Ahmed al-Shara, his name is. So if you'll hear those two names, be listening for those two names. So so anyway, Abraham Accords, peace with Israel, and suddenly the terror record is off the table, and the fact that they were just slaughtering Alawites and just threatening the Druze, and we don't know yet what's happening with Christians. And even if Giuliani becomes a changed character as opposed to his previous record, what about the people on in his forces, the ones he's recruited? So not sure about that. Anyway, so okay, so let's move on to what's happening here in Israel, because I mentioned that there's a lot of angst at the fact that the American hostage got out. Now there was nobody who expressed that they're upset with that. But that the fact that if you're American, you can get out, but if you're Israeli, you can't. That leaves us now with 58 hostages. There were, I think, at the most, there were 24 alive. So I guess now we're talking about 23. Some have had signs of life. I believe there's two other foreigners, but there's suspicions that they are among the 35 that are believed to be deceased. And I think they are from, I believe, India and Thailand. So the hostage situation remains. But we woke up this morning to news that Israel resumed, now that Trump is leaving the region, Israel resumed its massive bombing attacks on Gaza. And in the last week, there have been 2 attacks on hospitals. There are large migrations of Gazans, and probably what's grabbing the headlines today is now even the American government is saying there is starvation in Gaza and we need to take care of it. Now, I know you hear a lot and you've seen, there's always like, the videos that are going to contradict these claims of starvation. And they're going to show you, oh, look, the market in Gaza is full of food. Wow, they opened a new bakery or an ice cream shop. Or you see the videos of like faked dead people who were killed, and then you see them come to life or whatever. And maybe and all of those events are true, but it doesn't mean that the other events are not true. And now when you've got the American administration also saying, we've got to fix this. Now, Trump said this several times. in calling for all of these countries to join the Abraham Accords and to make deals with Israel, he's also said several times, we've got to fix the situation in Gaza. It's not good. It's not good. And a lot of other countries have been raising this alarm as well, that there has been a humanitarian blockade by Israel on Gaza since for about, I think, about 6 weeks now, and that whatever was left in Gaza now it's running out in many areas. And there was a report that just in the last couple days, 18 children starved to death in Gaza. So this is getting on the agenda of everybody now. And this is something that Trump keeps driving home. So we wake up to the increased attacks in Gaza. I came across the press release from the Hostages Family Forum. They are in favor of an immediate ceasefire and deal to get back all the hostages. And they said, this is their press release, we are in dramatic hours that will determine the future of our loved ones, the future of Israeli society, and the future of the Middle East. Missing this historic opportunity for a deal to bring the hostages home would be a resounding failure that will be remembered in infamy forever. We call on Prime Minister Netanyahu to join hands with President Trump's efforts, which will lead first and foremost to the release of 58 hostages and to extensive regional agreements. Time is running out, the world is watching, and history will remember. End quote. Now, that's one side. Here's the other side. There's another group. There's the Tikva Forum. Tikva means hope in Hebrew, and it's also hostage families, but they're more on the they're pro-war. They want the pro-war. That sounds bad. They want the military operation to continue, and they actually put out their own statement saying that the Gaza war is heading in the right direction, and they're urging more military pressure. Here's a quote from them. The justification for the military activity is solely for the release of all of our abductees together without selection and without stages. So they are at odds, even within the 58 families of hostages, they are at odds with each other. So there are conflicting reports about so many things coming out now. It depends, honestly, who are you listening to, who are you watching? And I urge you to, if you hear one news item coming out, go seek out like the opposite media. Like if you're listening to the right wing, listen to the left wing. If you're listening to North, listen to South. Like just go find other media, because we have to be really sure what's happening here. Now, after the terror attack in which this woman was killed, several let's say ministers in the government came out with statements calling for the West Bank, where the Palestinian villages in the West Bank, because the West Bank is like Jewish Palestinian, like all right next to each other. They're calling to turn the Palestinian villages in the West Bank into Gaza. They're saying flatten it, just like we did with Gaza. And so the language that is coming out from the Israeli government is also calling for this, just to use military means to subdue the Palestinians. Now, on the other hand, if you listen to the Palestinians, the Arab media is saying, wait a second, you had one person killed in a terror attack, and we just had 100 Gazans killed by an Israeli bomb. And they're saying, why do our lives not matter as much as this one life? Now, I think if you are pro-life, all lives matter. And that's why it's important for us to seek out the truth here. So also with Trump's visit to the region, some people are saying, like there's many articles, many analyses that his policies are representing a shift against Israel. That he is coming out and saying, okay, you got to get humanitarian aid and people are starving. We've got to turn this around. We need to focus on Gaza, take care of the Palestinians. This isn't good. Now, on the other hand, there were other articles that came out that actually he's saying Israel can do what it wants. If it wants to go in militarily, it's fine. It's up to them to defend themselves. So there's these two competing narratives that are coming out. Of course, I touched on, are the Gazans starving or not? You've got a string of channels that, are just publishing like the food and that's being sold there and in the market. Mind you, some of it is being sold like, $100 for a small kilo of flour or something like that. So they're saying, no, there is food. They're not starving. And then there are other channels that are showing and saying that 18 have already starved to death and that many more will. And the other conflicting thing is what Israel's doing there. Are innocent Gazans dying? I think even Israel will say that, the military will say, like, we try as hard as possible. We warn, we say to get out of the way. We're about to bomb. We give warnings. And then the other side will say, but you know what? They're still dying. And when you have 100 people die in one attack, they weren't all Hamas. So there are, again, as usual, there's so many conflicting stories coming out, but I believe it is so important, especially at such a time as this, to see both sides and to listen and to hear what's happening and to really discern truth. The region is at a crossroads. Whatever Trump just did, going through Saudi Arabia, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, these are all, two of them at least are would be against Iran, and Qatar is like a little bit iffy. But what kind of deals are being made? Why did he go there? Why did he not come to Israel? And Syria, how did he draw? He met with the new president of Syria. So there's a lot of things going on of which we're not going to see. Now, in the meantime, there are constantly meetings that we know nothing about. It's not even in the news. I just spoke with a lawyer, an Israeli Arab lawyer who was invited to the US Embassy for discussions about what is the day after? And the American Embassy is conducting these discussions to talk about how would a Palestinian state look? Should there be a Palestinian state? Where would it be? How would it be? How would it be? How about we set up these committees in the West Bank and geographic connection between and freedom of movement? So all of this is going on. And I think it speaks to the need to dive deeper beyond the headlines and to look at what is happening. Now, I'm just going to wrap up with something that I have noticed in when the missile hit, bypassed the Houthis missile. By the way, didn't they made a peace agreement with Trump, and yet they're firing even more at Israel than they have before. By the way, that's like been an increase in missiles. But when that missile bypassed two air defense systems, an Israeli and American air defense system, and actually landed on the grounds of Ben Gurion Airport, I was like, unbelievable. We really needed that. We needed that. Like, just before that, we had wildfires that were raging that came out of no, of course, on a hot, dry day, which we're about to have right now. It's about to go up to like 110 degrees here. But on this hot, dry day, fires sparked, wildfires all over between Jerusalem to Tel Aviv. canceling Independence Day activities and threatening damage. People were evacuated. I was like, well, we needed that. And then also in the midst of this, the teachers union is striking. So like every day you wake up to find out whether or not your teachers are striking this day. And you know, it was a call-in sick strike. And so that you've got that going on every day, not knowing where it's going to be. And it's just, and then the missile, like, so just when you thought like, at least we can fly, at least there's, you know, people can come and people can go from the country, then that was blown up as well, no pun intended. But there is such a sense of uncertainty that it's like a pall above the people at all times of you cannot wake up knowing what your plans will be. Whether you're going to have a siren, whether your flight is going to be canceled, and down to something as simple as whether your kids are going to go to school, or whether this latest heat wave going on is going to cause more fires that are going to come to your neighborhood and cause you to evacuate. So we normalized the war, more than a year and a half of war that is still going on and had been on several fronts and now is like a little bit more concentrated, but there's still a war going on and we normalized all of that. But now the question is, what else? And I think that is the biggest point I'd like to make. There's a lot of news, there's a lot of things to take in and to read more about and understand more about, but everybody's sitting around saying, what is next? What could possibly be next? And when you live with that uncertainty, it's really hard to make plans to move forward, to succeed on a daily basis.